The oil system flaw that destroyed thousands of big blocks. What if I told you that a $2 factory shortcut, one that veteran mechanics trusted for decades, held the power to instantly destroy a perfectly rebuilt $15,000 big block? Not a bad tune, not a missed shift, but a fatal plumbing flaw buried deep inside Detroit's toughest iron blocks. While your dashboard oil gauge proudly read a rock-solid 60 psi, this hidden trap was secretly starving your crankshaft to death without a single warning light. Today, we are diving into the top-down oiling flaw that wiped out thousands of classic V8s and the multi-million-dollar side oiler secret Ford secretly cast to survive Le Mans. If you love uncovering these engineering myths of muscle car history, hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and drop a comment about an engine you lost despite having perfect oil pressure. We might feature your story in a future video. The 1960s horsepower wars branded engines like the 700-pound Chevy Mark IV Rat and early Ford FES as indestructible, cast iron gods of torque. Decades later, gearheads treat them as bulletproof. But walk into any serious machine shop today, and you'll see the brutal reality. Fresh, meticulously machined street/strip big blocks, spinning main bearings just hundreds of miles after an expensive rebuild. The industry reflex is to blame the builder. They point to aggressive ignition curves, tight 1/1000th of an inch bearing clearances, or reckless RPM abuse. But forensic teardowns prove otherwise. You likely did everything exactly by the book. The problem is that the book was written by accountants. The true assassin is the factory's top-down oiling architecture. When Detroit poured these blocks, they routed the lifeblood to bathe the valve train, first flooding the lifters and springs. The single most highly stressed component in the entire rotating assembly, the crankshaft, was literally the last thing to get a drop of oil. You didn't build it wrong, you are battling a compromised plumbing system stacked against you. In the mid-1960s, Detroit's engineering departments were locked in a quiet war against corporate bean counters. The battleground wasn't horsepower, it was machining time. Drilling multiple dedicated oil galleries to prioritize the crankshaft was expensive. By casting just one single main gallery that routed oil up to the lifters first, GM and Ford saved roughly $2 per engine block. Multiplied by millions of units rolling off the assembly line, that $2 shortcut printed money. Let's look at the rivals. While Chrysler's 426 Hemi engineers insisted on priority main oiling feeding their massive 2.750-inch main journals before the cam and lifters, Ford and Chevy's accountants chose the cheaper, top-down path. Detroit's top engineers weren't blind. They understood that under sustained load or high RPM, the 2.749-inch main journals would starve. But Detroit didn't intentionally set out to destroy your engine. They simply ran the actuarial tables. For a standard passenger car doing grocery runs at 2,500 revolutions per minute, they accepted the compromise because the bottom end would survive just long enough to cross the standard 50,000-mile warranty threshold. They engineered for cost, not endurance. It wasn't a malicious conspiracy, it was a calculated corporate compromise. Build it cheap, let the top end swim in oil, and push the inevitable catastrophic bottom-end failure onto the second owner. When an engine builder discovers the factory's oiling flaw, the reflexive fix is usually to install a high-volume oil pump. It seems like basic mechanical logic. More volume equals more protection. The devastating reality is that bolting an upgrade like a Melling M55HV, which moves 20% to 25% more oil than stock onto a factory-plumbed 1960s block, actually accelerates its destruction. It triggers a fatal fluid dynamics chain reaction. The high-volume pump rapidly empties the oil pan, shoving massive amounts of fluid into the cylinder heads. Because Detroit's factory drainback holes were never sized for this volume, and are often choked by leftover casting flash, the oil gets physically trapped in the valve covers. Down below, the pan runs dry, and the pickup screen begins sucking in air. This creates aerated oil, a lethal mixture of lubricant and bubbles. Unlike liquid oil, air is compressible. When this foam reaches the main bearings, the critical hydrodynamic wedge collapses instantly. The crankshaft makes direct, violent metal-to-metal contact with the bearing shells at thousands of feet per minute. The cruelest part of this physics trap? The dashboard gauge. The oil pressure sensor is located at the top rear of the block. It measures the restriction of the fluid trapped near the lifters, proudly reporting a rock-solid 60 pounds per square inch. You stare at a perfect number on the dash, completely blind to the fact that your crankshaft is actively tearing itself apart in a bath of foam. In 1965, Henry Ford, the second's vendetta to crush Enzo Ferrari at Le Mans, was collapsing under the weight of a $2 plumbing flaw. Carroll Shelby and Ken Miles were scattering 427 FE engines across the tarmac. The standard top oiler blocks simply could not survive 6,000 RPM down the 3-mile Mulsanne Straight. The valve train hoarded the oil, the pan aerated, and the main bearings violently seized. Let's look at the industry standards of the time. While Chrysler engineered the 426 Hemi with a true priority main oiling system to ensure the crank always swam in clean oil, Ford and Chevy chose the risky top-down path for their commercial big blocks. The disparity was glaring. While Ferrari's exotic 4.0-liter V12 engines achieved nearly 100 horsepower per liter with highly sophisticated lubrication, Ford's brute force iron was tearing its own bottom end apart. Even at Le Mans, Ford had to detune the GT40 endurance engine to 485 horsepower, down from the 520 horsepower NASCAR spec, just so this obsolete oiling system wouldn't blow itself up. But even that couldn't save the bearings. The top-down architecture itself was guilty. In a multi-million-dollar panic, Ford cast their mechanical confession directly into iron, the legendary 427 side oiler. They abandoned the top-down shortcut, machining a massive dedicated oil gallery externally down the lower left side of the block. This priority main oiling forced high-pressure fluid directly to the crankshaft first. To guarantee survival, they backed this new iron geometry with a dual scavenge dry sump system delivering a relentless 65 to 70 psi at 6,000 RPM, proving its strength on a brutal 48-hour dynamometer cycle. The ultimate betrayal? Ford conclusively proved the top-down system was a fatal flaw under sustained loads. They completely redesigned the block to sweep Le Mans 1-2-3 in 1966, but quietly continued selling the compromised, mass-produced top oiler architecture to the general public. The racing elite got a bulletproof rotating assembly, the guy walking into the local dealership got a ticking time bomb. Legendary builders like Smokey Yunick couldn't wait for Detroit's corporate fixes. To keep street-cast blocks alive in NASCAR, they reverse-engineered the flawed factory plumbing. Don't just pour expensive synthetic oil into bad plumbing. If you are building an FE or Mark IV, demand your machine shop hammer brass restrictors into the lifter galleries. Shrinking the massive 5/16-inch factory rocker feed down to a 60,000th-inch orifice physically forces the pump's volume back down to the starving crankshaft. It is the only way to serve the crank before the fluid aerates into foam. Racers also permanently plugged the factory oil filter bypass. Designed as a fail-safe, this valve naturally blew open at high RPM. They chose the risk of a burst filter over dumping unfiltered metal shavings straight into the main bearings. They didn't just add horsepower. They had to reverse-engineer Detroit's plumbing so the engine could survive its own brutal power. Today, gearheads fall into a dangerous modern trap, throwing 21st-century chemistry at a mid-century geometry problem. A builder will easily drop $100 on high zinc, boutique synthetic racing oil, believing its 100,000 psi film strength will definitively bulletproof their 1960s block. They spend a fortune on fluid quality, but absolutely $0 fixing the $2 factory plumbing flaw. Here is the cold, physical reality. The most exotic synthetic oil on Earth cannot save a main bearing if the fluid is physically trapped 15 inches above the crankshaft. When a high-volume pump shoves 15 gallons of oil per minute up into the cylinder heads, and the restrictive factory drain-back holes can only return 10 gallons, the pan violently runs dry. Synthetic oil has incredible shear stability, but it cannot lubricate a journal when the pickup screen is sucking pure air. Fluid chemistry will never override plumbing geometry. A $15,000 rebuild doesn't die from bad oil. It dies from an empty gallery. The big block isn't a bad engine. It is a misunderstood victim of a $2 mass production compromise that nearly changed the course of racing history. These cast iron giants were never fundamentally flawed. They were simply underplumbed for the power they were capable of making. If you are building a classic big block today, your priority must be plumbing over magic fluids. Never run a high-volume pump on a stock oiling circuit, as it only accelerates the starvation cycle. Take the time to check your drain-back holes for casting flash, ensure your builder uses a windage tray, and specifically ask your machine shop if they have installed lifter restrictors. Knowledge is the only thing that truly bulletproofs an engine. Have you ever lost a bottom end while the oil pressure gauge still read perfectly normal? Drop your story in the comments below. We might feature your teardown in a future video.